Out of spring practice, I want to start right here with just physicality, tackling, the way they've practiced. They've gotten after it. And you see even the videos. I mean, you have Heinrich Harburg going downfield, making lead blocks on guys as a quarterback. But it's been a big point to kind of ramp up the physicality with this defense and how they've gone about practicing over the course of the spring.
Yeah, I think it has. And it was kind of refreshing today. In these media sessions, you often get a lot of kind of philosophical questions and sort of, I don't know, they just sort of lead to nowhere. And somebody just said, "Hey, how's the tackling?" It was really refreshing. Like, oh yeah, we're actually going to talk about some football part here. Nice. And Rule said some sort of illuminating things. He says we're not tackling a lot live, but we have. They're teaching a new way of tackling, and some guys are taking bad angles. But the big thing, he says, it's a very willing tackling team, and they're not soft.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what if you watch the video, he kind of got into how they're going about it, but it's hard to convey.
Yeah, basically he talked about the balance of, changing leading with the head, which to reduce head injuries, but now you're seeing more labrum injuries and shoulder injuries than ever because of the emphasis of leading with the shoulder.
Yeah.
And the fact that shoulder pads are now smaller than they've ever been,
right?
Because of the style and speed element. So it's a fine line now and what's the safest approach for tackling. And so there's all sorts of that in terms of just the normal fundamentals of bringing down a ball carrier. So a work in progress. The scrimmage this coming Saturday, he said, is going to be really big as far as that is concerned.
Because they're going to hit.
Yeah, they're going to hit a lot. They're going to run a lot of plays, and it's going to be a lot of live tackling.
It's a big scrimmage.
That, I think, is going to be that next real turning point in really evaluating how good of a tackling team this group actually is. And while it has been limited, he said that what they've seen has been good overall. I mean, certainly not perfect, but I think what you mentioned, Sip, the most important part is that it's a willing group. I mean, they're not going to shy away from contact once they're in that element.
Yeah.
And that scrimmage on Saturday is kind of the pinnacle of spring practice. Mm-hmm. Yes, the spring game is the show, but that is the pinnacle. Like that is where you take the gloves off and say, let's go.
You'll find out about some players, good or bad. And you're right, Sean, that's always the way it is. The final scrimmage of the spring is the key.
It's the true spring game.
Way more important than the spring
key
game.
Evaluation point.
And what you'll hear on the actual spring game is like, we simplified things and just wanted the athletes to be athletes. Let them play. Where like they're going to run a lot more terminology into their concepts in the actual scrimmage. And that was the Zach Taylor scrimmage, the legendary 2005 Nebraska scrimmage where Bill Callahan scrimmaged his team for 3.5 hours.
And they determined that Zach's toughness showed. They wanted to put those quarterbacks in difficult situations. Yeah, you're right. The spring game, there's meaning to it because you do see the athletes. You can see them. You see the guys show out their athleticism. Like you will see Jeff Sims show out on that day. Now, maybe some others will too.
We saw some other guys back, by the way, on the field. Blaze Gunnarsson back out there practicing. And this is a guy that's battled injuries really since high school.
Yeah.
And you just hope that he can get himself back. Brody Tagaloa was back in red practicing, and he's now a D lineman, no longer a tight end. He had an injury as a senior in high school. He was shelved last year, had been shelved at the beginning of the spring. He's impressive looking kid. Like, can they get some repetition out of Brody Tagaloa?
Yeah, Gunnarsson and Tagaloa are both good looking players.
Mm-hmm. But especially Gunnarsson. I mean, he looks like a Big Ten D lineman now.
He does.
I mean, he's got the stature to him. Just need to stay on the field, stay healthy. Omar Brown and Javin Wright are both practicing, but in green jerseys. I think Omar's doing maybe a little bit more than Javin, at least as far as what we've been able to see. But other than that, like, they're pretty healthy on the defensive side. I mean, most of the other green jerseys and notable yellow jersey guys are on the offensive side of the ball. So good spot for the defense to be in at this point in spring ball.
Omar Brown and Javin Wright are two guys that have been injured a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's notable, and I say that because they're both really talented.
Yes.
Omar Brown's a senior, a veteran player. You just like him to see him shake that stuff off and become that player that you have kind of in your mind's eye. Javin Wright's the same way. He started last year against Wisconsin, had one start, and again, big, good-looking player. I mean, you use him on the punt team to rush the punter because of his length and athleticism. But, man, you like to see it start showing up on defense. But on the other hand, they got a lot of defensive backs. It's not like there's any code red. If those two guys don't play, they're fine. I mean it. I mean, they got enough guys back there.
So when you look at the defensive secondary, are we assuming today that Malcolm Hartstug is the opposite corner, or is he a safety? And if it's not Hartstug at corner, who is that corner? Is it Tommy Hill? Is it somebody else? That opposite of Quentin Newsome. We don't really have a beat on that.
No, we don't. We need to get a beat on that.
That's one I don't really, because I don't feel like corner is where they want Hartstug long term. I think
they're really moving him around, right?
I think they've got other plans for it.
It seems like it, doesn't it? What it could a guy like Tame and Lynham rise?
You don't hear his name though. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. But
no, I know you don't though. You're right. You don't. But he looks the part.
We'll get Tony White one more time.
Still wonder what Marquise Buford's situation is like, and how does he impact?
He can play corner.
That discussion.
Played safety last year, but he can play corner.
And that's where he started out at when he got to Nebraska.
Corner.
Yeah,
he can play corner. Tommy Hill, you wonder about. I mean, the last staff just loved him. I still have that memory of Fisher saying he's a dog.
His name was going to be on the stadium someday.
Tom
he said
Fisher
that.
Is a dog.
That, I mean, I told him his name could be on that stadium if he plays someday. The way I think. I mean, so why did that go south?
Yeah. Well, it did. And I don't know why. Well, you saw why. You saw against Georgia Southern why it went.
It got
in Oklahoma.
You hear stories that got a little heated in practice one day with Fisher and Tommy, and then that's when he made the move to receiver. But the move to receiver just ended up being
not when it wasn't much.
A lot of empty calories there. He just wasn't.
Yeah, a lot of vanilla Oreos. Yeah, not much there. Or regular Oreos. I mean, those are good too, but I really like the vanilla. But yeah, there wasn't much to talk about, but it doesn't mean his career's over.
No.
We'll see where that goes, but that's a good thing for us to ferret out. We got to get that in. Like,
get a beat on that second corner.
Yeah, second corner.
Like Braxton Clark, is he a guy that really, because this is his 6th year, like what's his outlook right now? If he's not in their plan, I mean, this decision that they have to make on players that will be asked back or not, you have to, just look at those safety and some of these defensive back numbers. Like, that's a position that you have to think there's going to be some attrition.
Yeah. I don't want to speculate on who.
No, but just look. The numbers alone dictate that there's going to be some
safeties, a lot of safeties. But here's the thing: they've added the rover position, so you effectively have 3 safeties now. So it's good they have a lot of those bodies. Corner's the position you wonder about. Newsome's locked in. As
Omar Brown's locked in.
You think?
Like, to play and be on the field? Yeah, I do.
Do you?
I think he'll get on the field.
Okay.
They're high on Omar Brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't think they are?
Yeah, I do. I just don't know if he's a lock.
To be a starter or to play?
You got Gifford. You got Miles Farmer.
No, that's a guy.
You got Buford. You got Isaac. Yeah, Gifford.
You don't hear Gifford's name much.
No, you don't.
Which is interesting to me
but it's sometimes, Sean, you know how it goes with this covering this team. Sometimes it's just because nobody asked. Nobody asked about Gifford.
Well, he hasn't.
So then we say they're not talking to him. They're not talking about him, and they're talking about, I don't know, Omar Brown. Maybe because just somebody asked about him. I don't know. It doesn't always matter that much. Now, there are names they volunteer, though. Those are the ones. That's why I always say those are the ones to me that are most
the unsolicited mentions.
Yeah, those are really meaningful.
That means the coach went up there with a point to talk about that guy.